I need you to understand something before I tell you this. If you ever wake up and find tracks outside your home that weren't there the night before, don't ignore them. Don't rationalize them away like I did, because once they start getting closer, they don't stop. And by the time you realize what they belong to, it's already too late. I didn't believe in things like that. Not really. I told myself there was always an explanation. There had to be. But explanations don't leave marks that deep in frozen ground. And they don't come back every single morning, a little closer than before. The first time I saw them, I laughed. I actually laughed. That's the part that still makes me feel sick when I think about it. Because if I hadn't laughed, if I had taken it seriously right then, maybe things would have turned out differently. Maybe she wouldn't have... No, I'm getting ahead of myself. You need to hear it the way it happened. Slow. The way it unfolded for me. Because that's the only way you'll understand why I didn't leave when I had the chance. And why, even now, I'm not sure it ever really left me alone. It started the first week after we moved into the cabin. It was supposed to be a reset. Quiet, isolated, away from everything that had been falling apart back in the city. She said the silence would help, that we'd finally be able to breathe again. And for a few days, it felt like she was right. The air was colder out there, cleaner. You could hear everything. Wind through the trees, distant branches snapping, the soft creak of wood settling at night. It felt honest, real, like nothing could hide out there. That was the lie I didn't catch until it was already watching us. The first set of tracks showed up on a morning so still, it didn't feel natural. No wind, no birds, just that heavy, pressing quiet. I remember stepping out onto the porch with a cup of coffee, still half asleep, and seeing them cutting across the yard. Long, too long. Nattering in a way that didn't make sense, like something had stretched them out. At first I thought it was a trick of the light. Frost can do that, distort GGK, make things look bigger than they are. I told myself it was probably just a deer, maybe a large one. Maybe the GGK had softened in a weird way. I even stepped down off the porch to get a closer look. That was my first mistake. Up close, they didn't look like anything GGK'd ever seen before. The impressions were GGK, deeper than they should have been for any animal that size. And the spacing between them, it was wrong. Too far apart, like whatever made them wasn't walking the way it was supposed to. I remember crouching there, staring at them, feeling that first small flicker of something I GGK. Not fear, discomfort. Like a thought trying to form that I kept pushing down GGK. She came out behind me, wrapping a blanket around her shoulders, asking GGK I was looking at. I almost told her the truth. Almost said, I don't know what made these. But I GGK told her it was probably just an animal passing through. She believed me, or at least she chose to. That's the thing about us. We were both good at pretending something wasn't wrong, if acknowledging it meant we'd have to make a hard decision. Like leaving. We didn't want to leave. GGK. Yet. Not yet. Not when things were just starting GGK again. So we ignored it. We stepped over the tracks, went back GGK, made breakfast, talked about normal GGK. And for a few hours, it almost felt night. Until that night. I woke up to a sound I couldn't place. Not loud, not sudden. Just there. Like it had been happening for a while, and my brain finally caught up to it. A slow, dragging noise. Outside. Close. Too close. I lay there in the dark, listening, trying to convince myself it was just branches scraping against the siding. But there were GGK close enough for that. I knew that. I had cleared that area myself when we first got there. The sound stopped, just like that, and the silence that followed felt heavier than anything I'd ever experienced, like the air itself was holding its breath. I didn't get up. That's something I regret. I stayed in bed, staring at the ceiling, waiting for it to start again. It didn't. Eventually, exhaustion pulled me back under, and when morning came, I almost convinced myself it had been a dream. Almost. Until I opened the door. The tracks were back, and this time, they didn't stop at the edge of the yard. They came closer, closer than before, leading straight toward the porch. I remember the exact moment the unease turned into something sharper. It wasn't just that they were closer, it was the way they were placed, more deliberate, like whatever made them knew exactly where it was going. I felt it then, that quiet, creeping realization that this wasn't random. This wasn't something passing through. It was coming here, for us. And still, I didn't leave. I told myself it was curiosity, that I needed to understand what I was looking at before I made a decision. But that wasn't the truth. The truth is, part of me didn't want to believe we were in danger. Because if we were, then staying made no sense. And leaving meant admitting that everything we'd come here to fix couldn't be fixed. She started noticing things too, but not the tracks at first. She mentioned how quiet it had gotten, how the forest didn't sound right anymore. No birds in the morning, no insects at night, just that same heavy silence pressing in from all sides. I told her it was just the season changing, that animals move, migrate, disappear for a while. Another lie, another thing I wanted to believe. But then she saw the tracks, really saw them. And I could tell by the way her face changed that she understood something I was still trying to avoid. She didn't laugh like I had. She didn't try to explain it away. She just looked at me and said, "Those weren't there yesterday, were they?" And for a second, I considered lying again. But something in her voice stopped me, so I told her the truth. "They're getting closer." That was the first time we said it out loud, and once it was said, we couldn't take it back. That night, we locked the doors, all of them, checked the windows twice, turned off the lights earlier than usual, not because we thought it would help, but because doing something felt better than doing nothing. We sat in the living room, not really talking, just listening, waiting. And that's when we heard it again, the dragging sound, slower this time, heavier, like something was pacing just out of sight. She grabbed my arm, her fingers digging in harder than she probably realized. I didn't tell her to let go. I didn't move at all. We just sat there, frozen, listening to it circle the cabin. Once, twice, then it stopped, right outside the door. There was a moment, a long, unbearable moment, where nothing happened. And then came the sound I still hear when I try to sleep. A slow, deliberate scrape, like claws pressing into wood, testing it, feeling it, not trying to get in, not yet, just letting us know it could. That was the point where we should have left, packed whatever we could, and driven until the trees disappeared behind us. But we didn't, because fear doesn't always make you run. Sometimes it makes you stay. Sometimes it convinces you that if you just make it through one more night, things will go back to normal. They never do. The next morning, the tracks reached the door, and that's when everything started to fall apart. I didn't open the door right away. I just stood there, hand hovering over the handle, staring at the wood like I could see through it. The scratches from the night before were still fresh. Thin grooves carved into the surface, not deep enough to break through, but deliberate, controlled. That was the worst part. It hadn't been trying to get in. Not really. It had been showing us something, demonstrating. I don't know how long I stood there before she spoke behind me, her voice quieter than I'd ever heard it. Don't. Just that. One word. But it carried everything. Fear. Understanding. The kind of instinct you don't question unless you're stupid or desperate. I wish I could say I listened. I wish I could tell you I stepped back, locked the door again, and we left right then. But I didn't. Because by that point, something else had taken hold. Not curiosity anymore. Something heavier. A need to see it for myself. To prove, one way or another, that this was still something I could understand. Something that followed rules. I opened the door. Slow, careful, like that would make a difference. The cold hit first, sharper than it had been any morning before. It carried a smell with it, too. Damp, metallic, wrong. The kind of smell that doesn't belong in open air. And then I saw them. The tracks came right up to the threshold, stopped just inches from where I was standing. Close enough that if I'd stepped forward without looking, my foot would have landed inside one. They were deeper than before. Pressed so hard into the ground, it looked like the earth had given way beneath whatever weight made them. And the shape? I couldn't pretend anymore. This wasn't a deer. It wasn't anything I'd ever seen. Long, narrow, almost like a hand, but not quite. The front pressed deeper than the back, like it leaned forward as it moved. Like it wasn't balanced the way it should be. I crouched again, even though edges were still sharp. No frost filling them in, no wind disturbance. Fresh. That word hit me harder than it should have. Fresh meant it had been here recently, not hours ago, not sometime during the night. Recently. Close. Watching, maybe. I felt it then. That shift. The one you can't explain, but you recognize immediately. The feeling of being seen. I looked up fast, scanning the tree line. Nothing moved. No sound. Just that same suffocating silence pressing in from every direction. But it was there. I know it was. You don't feel something like that for no reason. I stood up too quickly, backing toward the door without taking my eyes off the woods. I didn't see anything, not then. But I didn't need to. The absence of movement felt intentional, like it knew exactly how much to show and how much to hide. When I stepped back inside and shut the door, she was already looking at me like she had her answer. I didn't have to say anything. "We're leaving," she said. No hesitation, no doubt, just a decision. And for the first time since this started, I agreed. Just like that. No argument, no rationalizing. Because something had changed. It wasn't just outside anymore. It felt closer than that. Too close. We moved fast after that. Or at least, it felt fast. Throwing things into bags without really thinking about what we needed. Clothes, keys, phone chargers. The kind of things you grab when you think you'll be coming back later. That's the lie you tell yourself. That this is temporary. That you'll return once things settle. I remember stopping at one point, holding a picture frame in my hand, trying to decide if it mattered enough to take. That's how denial works. It keeps you focused on the wrong details, while something else is already deciding your outcome. She was at the window when it happened. She froze mid-step, her whole body going still in a way that didn't make sense, until I followed her gaze. "Do you see that?" she whispered. I didn't want to look. That's the truth. Every instinct I had was telling me not to turn toward that window. But I did. And at first, I didn't see anything. Just the tree line. Darker than it should have been in daylight. Shadows pooling between the trunks. Then something shifted. Not a full movement. Just enough to break the pattern. A shape where there shouldn't have been one. Tall. Too tall. It didn't step out. It didn't come closer. It just existed there. Watching. I couldn't make out details, not clearly. But I saw the outline. The way its shoulders sat too high. The way its head didn't align right with the rest of its body. And the eyes. God, the eyes. Not glowing, not like in stories, just reflective, catching the light in a way that made them impossible to ignore once you saw them. That was the moment everything we'd been pretending collapsed. There was no explanation left, no rational angle to take. Just the truth, standing there in the trees, letting us look at it, letting us understand. She grabbed my arm again, harder this time. We need to go, now. I nodded, but my body didn't move right away, because something else had started to sink in. It wasn't coming closer. It wasn't rushing us. It was letting us leave. And that didn't feel like mercy. It felt like control. Like it already knew where this was going. We forced ourselves into motion after that. Bags zipped, shoes on, keys in hand. I kept expecting to hear something outside. Movement, footsteps, anything. But there was nothing. Just that same unnatural quiet wrapping around the cabin like a barrier. When I opened the door this time, I didn't step out right away. I scanned the yard, the trees, every shadow I could see. Nothing. The tracks were still there, leading up to the porch, but no new ones. No sign of where it had gone. That was wrong. That was so wrong. Because something that big doesn't just disappear without leaving a trace. We moved anyway. Fast, but not running. Like running would trigger something. Gravel crunched under our shoes as we crossed the yard. Every sound felt too loud, like it didn't belong in that silence. I reached the car first, fumbling the keys more than I should have. My hands weren't steady. I won't pretend they were. She got in on the passenger side, slamming the door harder than necessary. The sound echoed out into the trees and died instantly. I started the engine. For a second, nothing happened. Just that click. And my stomach dropped in a way I can't fully explain. Then it turned over. The engine came to life, loud and normal, and completely out of place in that dead quiet. I remember gripping the wheel too tight, staring straight ahead as I shifted into reverse. And that's when I saw it again. Not in the trees this time, closer, much closer. Standing just off to the side of the cabin, half hidden by the corner of the structure. I don't know how long it had been there. I don't know if it had moved while we were inside, or if it had always been that close. But I saw it clearly enough this time to know one thing for certain. It wasn't just watching us, it was waiting. And as I threw the car into gear and hit the gas, I had this horrible, sinking realization that leaving wasn't going to end this. It was just going to change where it happened next. The tires spun longer than they should have on the gravel. Just for a second, but it felt stretched, like something was holding us in place. Then they caught, and the car lurched forward hard enough to throw us back into our seats. I didn't look at her. I couldn't. All my focus tunneled straight ahead, down that narrow dirt road, cutting through the trees like a wound that never healed right. The cabin disappeared behind us faster than I expected, swallowed by the forest almost immediately. And still, I felt it, that pressure, not fading, not weakening. If anything, it stayed exactly the same. Like distance didn't matter to it. Like we hadn't actually put anything between us at all. "Don't slow down," she said, her voice tight, controlled in a way that told me she was barely holding it together. I nodded, even though she wasn't looking at me. My foot pressed harder on the gas. The car wasn't built for that kind of road. Every bump rattled through the frame. Every turn felt like it might send us sliding. But I didn't ease up. Not once. The trees blurred past in long, dark streaks. The light felt wrong out there. Too flat. Like the sky had dimmed without clouds. I checked the rearview mirror. I shouldn't have. Nothing at first. Just the road stretching back. empty. Then for a split second, something crossed it. Fast, too fast to track properly. Not a shape I could hold on to. Just movement. And then it was gone. I blinked hard, trying to convince myself it was a trick of light, of nerves, of everything stacking on top of each other. But my hands tightened on the wheel anyway. "Did you see that?" she asked quietly. So she saw it too. That was worse. That made it real in a way I couldn't talk myself out of. "Probably just an animal," I said. The words came out automatically, like a reflex I hadn't unlearned yet. Even now, I was still trying to force this into something normal. She didn't respond. And that silence said more than anything she could have. The road curved sharply ahead, dipping into a section where the trees grew closer together, branches arching overhead like they were closing in. I slowed just enough to take the turn without losing control. That's when the engine stuttered. Just once. A small hitch. But it hit me like a warning. I pressed the gas again. It responded, but not cleanly. Something was off. "No, no, no," I muttered under my breath, like saying it out loud might keep it from getting worse. The car pushed forward, but the sound of the engine had changed. Rougher, strained. And then it happened again. A sharper stutter this time. The kind you feel in your chest as much as you hear. She turned toward me, panic breaking through completely now. "What's wrong?" I didn't answer right away because I didn't know, and I didn't want to guess. The worst part wasn't the possibility of the car failing. It was the timing. The way it lined up too perfectly with everything else. Like it wasn't a coincidence at all. Like something was interfering. We hit another stretch of uneven ground, and the car jolted hard enough that something in the back shifted and slammed against the interior. The sound echoed through the cabin. Too loud, too sudden. She flinched. I almost did too. And then the engine cut. Completely. No warning beyond what we'd already felt. Just silence. The kind that drops all at once and leaves your ears ringing. The car kept rolling for a few seconds, carried by momentum, then slowed. Slower. Until it stopped. Right there, in the middle of that narrow road, surrounded by trees that suddenly felt too close, too dense, too aware. I turned the key again, immediately. Nothing. Just that hollow, clicking sound. Again. Nothing. My chest tightened in a way that made it hard to breathe. I tried a third time, pressing harder like that would make a difference. Still, nothing. "Start the car," she said, her voice shaking now, no attempt to hide it. "I'm trying." It came out sharper than I meant it to. Not at her, at the situation, at myself, at everything. I forced a breath, steadied my hands as much as I could, and tried again. This time it turned over, weak, struggling. For a second, I thought it might catch, and then it died again. The silence that followed felt closer, thicker, like it had weight to it, and underneath it, just barely, I heard something else. Not from the car, not from us, from outside. A slow, deliberate step, off the road, in the trees. My head snapped toward the sound before I could stop myself. I couldn't see anything through the branches, not clearly, just shifting shadows and layered darkness. But the sound came again. Closer. Another step. Heavy enough that I felt it more than heard it. She grabbed my arm, her nails digging in. It followed us. Not a question. A realization. And in that moment, something inside me finally gave way. All the denial, all the attempts to explain it. Gone. Replaced by something raw and immediate. Fear. Real fear. the kind that doesn't leave room for anything else. I turned the key again, not expecting anything, just needing to do something. Anything. The engine coughed, struggled. Then somehow it caught. Weak, uneven, but alive. I didn't hesitate. I slammed the gas, and the car lurched forward, tires spitting dirt as we pushed down the road again. Behind us, something moved. Fast. Not trying to hide anymore. I saw it in the mirror this time, clear enough to know I wasn't imagining it. Tall, lean, moving in long, unnatural strides that covered ground too quickly. It didn't run like an animal. It didn't run like anything I'd ever seen. It flowed. That's the only word I have for it. Like its body didn't follow the same rules as everything else. "Don't look," I said, even as I kept glancing back myself. "Just don't look." She didn't answer. I think she already had. The road ahead stretched out longer than it should have, or maybe it just felt that way. Every second dragged. Every turn felt like it might be the one where we lost control, or the car gave out again. And behind us, it didn't fall back. It didn't slow down. It kept pace. Not gaining, not losing. Just there, matching us. Like it was proving a point. Like it wanted us to understand something before the end. The trees began to thin eventually, just slightly, enough that I could see more light ahead, the main road. We were close. I pushed the car harder, ignoring the way it protested, the way the engine whined under the strain. We just had to make it a little further, just a little more distance. Behind us, the movement changed. Subtle, but enough to notice. It wasn't directly on the road anymore. It shifted to the side, weaving through the trees again. Keeping pace, but not showing itself as clearly. That should have felt like relief. It didn't. It felt worse. Like it didn't need to be seen anymore. Like it had already done what it came to do. The main road came into view ahead. Open space. Wider. Safer. Or at least, that's what it looked like. I didn't slow down as we hit it. The tires bounced over the uneven transition, then caught smooth pavement. And just like that, it was gone. No movement in the trees, no shape in the mirror, nothing. Just empty road stretching out behind us. I kept driving, faster than I should have, farther than we planned. Neither of us spoke for a long time, because we both knew, without saying it, that something had just changed. We hadn't escaped it. Not really. We just crossed some kind of line, and whatever had been following us had decided to let us go. That should have been the end of it. That's what I told myself over and over again as the miles put distance between us and that cabin. But deep down, there was something I couldn't shake. The way it kept pace without trying. The way it stopped right at the edge of the main road, like it respected a boundary. Or maybe, like it didn't need to cross it. And that thought didn't fully make sense until later, much later. When I realized the worst part of all of this wasn't what happened out there in the woods. It was what came with us when we left. We didn't talk about it for the rest of the drive, not really. A few broken sentences, questions that didn't go anywhere, half-formed thoughts that collapsed under their own weight. Mostly, we just sat there in that stale, recycled air, listening to the engine and trying to pretend that normal sounds still meant normal things. By the time we reached the outskirts of the nearest town, the world felt wrong in a quieter way. Streetlights came back, other cars, houses, life. But it all felt thin, like a layer laid over something else. Something we couldn't see anymore, but hadn't actually left behind. We checked into a small roadside motel without discussing it first. It just happened. like we both understood we weren't ready to go any further. Not yet. The woman at the front desk barely looked at us. That should have been comforting. It wasn't. It felt like we didn't fully exist to her, like whatever we'd brought with us had already started to separate us from everything else. The room smelled faintly of cleaning chemicals and old fabric, stale but familiar in a way that should have grounded me. I locked the door twice, checked the window, pulled the curtain tight. Same routine as the cabin, just in a smaller space. That's when it hit me how little had actually changed. Different walls, same feeling. She sat on the edge of the bed, arms wrapped around herself, staring at nothing. I wanted to say something, anything that would pull us back into something normal. But every sentence I tried to form felt false before it even reached my mouth. "We're fine," I said eventually. It sounded hollow, even to me. She didn't respond right away. When she did, her voice was distant. It didn't try to stop us. I felt that settle somewhere deep, heavier than it should have. "Maybe it couldn't," I said. Another reflex. Another attempt to put rules around something that had never followed any. She shook her head slowly. "No, it could have." Silence again. Thicker this time. More final. I sat down across from her, elbows on my knees, hands clasped tighter than they needed to be. My mind kept replaying it. The way it moved, the way it kept pace, the way it stopped exactly where the road changed. That line, that invisible boundary. "You think it was territorial?" I asked. The word felt wrong as soon as I said it. Too simple, too small for what we'd seen. She looked up at me then, and there was something in her eyes I hadn't seen before. Not just fear, understanding. The kind that comes a second too late. "No," she said quietly. "I think we were." That didn't make sense. Not at first. I opened my mouth to ask what she meant, but the words didn't come out. Because something else did. A sound. Soft. Almost too quiet to notice. From the bathroom. We both froze. Every muscle in my body locked in place as we listened. It came again. A faint, uneven tap, like something brushing lightly against tile. My chest tightened. "Did you?" I started. She nodded before I could finish. "Yeah." I stood slowly, every movement deliberate, controlled. The kind of careful you use when you don't want something to notice you yet. Even though some part of me already knew it had. The bathroom door was slightly ajar. I was sure I'd closed it earlier. Not just closed it, latched it. I remembered the click. I remembered checking it. I stepped closer, each footfall too loud in the quiet room. The air felt colder near the doorway. Not dramatically, just enough to notice if you were paying attention. I reached out and pushed the door open the rest of the way. Slow, careful, expecting something to be there. There was nothing. Just the sink, the mirror, the tub, all exactly as they should have been. I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. "It's nothing," I said, more to myself than to her. And then I saw it. On the tile floor, near the edge of the tub, a mark, faint, but there, damp, like something had pressed down and lifted away. Long, narrow, too long. My stomach dropped so fast, it felt like the ground shifted under me. "No." The word slipped out before I could stop it. She was beside me in an instant, looking down at the same spot. I didn't need to see her face to know what she was thinking, what we were both thinking. It didn't stay in the woods. It didn't stay at the cabin. It didn't stop at the road. Another mark appeared, not forming in front of us, not dramatically, Just there, where there hadn't been one a second ago, closer to the door, closer to us. I stepped back instinctively, pulling her with me. The air in the bathroom felt heavier now, thicker, like it was pushing outward. "Close it," she whispered. I didn't argue. I shut the door hard, the sound cracking through the room louder than it should have. For a second, nothing happened. We just stood there, staring at the door, waiting, hoping. Then came the sound, not tapping this time, not light. A slow, deliberate drag. From the inside, across the floor, toward the door. Her hand found mine, fingers locking tight enough to hurt. I didn't pull away. I couldn't. The handle twitched, barely, but enough to see, enough to know. And in that moment, every thought about distance, about boundaries, about leaving it behind, collapsed completely. Because whatever had been out there with us in the trees wasn't out there anymore. It was here, and it had followed us all the way inside. The handle didn't turn all the way, not at first. It just twitched again, a small testing movement, like something on the other side was learning how it worked. I felt her grip tighten, her nails digging into my skin, but I barely registered the pain. All of my attention was locked on that door, waiting for it to move again, waiting for something worse. "We need to leave," she whispered, her voice barely there. I nodded, but neither of us moved. Because leaving meant crossing that space, getting closer to the door, and something about that felt wrong, like it wanted that. The handle shifted again, this time slower, more deliberate. It turned just enough that I heard the faint click of the latch loosening under pressure. My body reacted before my mind caught up. I stepped forward and grabbed it, forcing it back into place, holding it there. I don't know why I did that. Instinct, maybe, or denial. Like I could keep whatever was behind it contained if I just held on tight enough. The metal felt colder than it should have. Not just cool, cold in a way that burned into my palm. And then something pushed back. Not hard, not trying to break through. Just pressure. Steady. Controlled. Like a hand pressing against the other side of the mechanism, testing my resistance. I froze, every muscle locked. My breath caught halfway in my chest as that realization settled in. It knew I was there. It knew exactly where my hand was, and it was matching me. I let go. I didn't mean to. My fingers just stopped working. The handle eased back to its original position on its own, not snapping, not forcing, just returning. And the silence that followed was worse than the movement, because now it wasn't trying anymore. It didn't need to. We backed away together, step by step, never taking our eyes off the door. The room felt smaller than before, tighter, like the walls had shifted inward while we weren't looking. "We go now," I said, my voice low, controlled, but breaking at the edges. This time, we moved. Fast. No hesitation, no second guessing. I grabbed the keys off the table, my hands shaking just enough to make the metal jingle louder than it should have. She was already at the door, unlocking it, pulling it open in one motion. The hallway outside looked normal. Too normal. Bright, empty, quiet in a way that didn't match what we'd just experienced. We stepped out together, not running, but not slowing down either. I pulled the door shut behind us without looking back. I didn't want to see if the bathroom door opened, didn't want to hear it. We walked straight to the stairs. The carpet muffled our footsteps, but I could still hear them. Too loud in my ears, too uneven. Halfway down, I thought I heard something behind us. A door. opening. I didn't stop. Neither did she. We reached the parking lot and the air hit us again, colder than it should have been for that time of day. I unlocked the car and we got in without a word. Doors slammed. Locks clicked. I started the engine. It turned over immediately this time. Smooth. Like nothing had ever been wrong with it. That should have been a relief. It wasn't. It felt like permission. Like something was letting us go again. I pulled out of the lot, not checking the rearview mirror this time. I couldn't. I kept my eyes forward, focused on the road, on anything that felt stable and predictable. We drove longer this time, farther. No destination, just distance. Hours passed without either of us speaking. The sun shifted, the light changing from flat gray to something warmer, but it didn't reach inside the car. Nothing did. Eventually, exhaustion forced us to stop again. A larger hotel this time. Brighter, busier. People moving through the lobby, voices overlapping, life happening in a way that should have made everything feel safer. I clung to that. Paid for the room, took the key. Rode the elevator up with a couple who didn't even glance at us. Normal. Everything looked normal. The room was on a higher floor. No easy access from outside. No trees close enough to reach the windows. I checked everything again. Doors, locks, bathroom, closet. Nothing out of place. No marks, no sounds. Just a room, just space. She sat on the bed again, but this time she didn't look at me. She stared at the floor like she was waiting for something to appear. I wanted to tell her it was over, that whatever happened at the cabin, whatever followed us to that first motel, it couldn't keep happening. Not here, not in a place like this, but the words didn't come, because deep down, I didn't believe them. We didn't turn the lights off that night, not fully, just dimmed them enough to try and rest. I lay there staring at the ceiling, listening to every small sound, the hum of electricity, distant footsteps in the hallway, pipes shifting somewhere behind the walls. All normal, all explainable. That's what I kept telling myself, over and over, until sleep finally started to pull at me. Not fully, just enough to blur the edges. And that's when I heard it. Not from the door, not from the bathroom, from above. A slow, dragging sound, directly over our heads. I opened my eyes immediately, my body going rigid as I listened. It moved across the ceiling, slow, heavy, deliberate. Following the length of the room, I turned my head slightly, just enough to see her. She was already looking at me, awake, hearing it too. Neither of us spoke because there was nothing left to say. The sound stopped right above us, centered, perfectly still. And then, very softly, something pressed down. The ceiling creaked, not like old wood settling, like weight, like something testing how much it could hold. My chest tightened as a single, horrible thought forced its way in. It didn't follow us on the ground. It didn't need roads. It didn't need doors. It just needed us. And wherever we GD, it would always find a way to be above us. The ceiling didn't break. Not then. It just held that weight, that impossible pressure, like something massive had settled directly over us and decided to stay there. I remember staring at that exact spot, waiting for cracks to spread, for plaster to GD way, for something to come through. But nothing did. That was worse, because it meant control. It wasn't forcing its way in. It didn't need to. It was showing us, again, that it could. The creaking stopped. Not gradually, just gone. Like the weight had been lifted in an instant. I didn't move. Neither did she. We stayed like that for what felt like hours, listening for anything, footsteps, dragging, even a shift in the air. Nothing came. EGD exhaustion won again. Not real sleep, just that shallow, broken kind where your body shuts down because it has no other option. When I woke up, the light was different. Morning but dull, like it had been filtered through something. For a second, I didn't remember where we were. GDG it all came back at once, hitting hard enough to make my chest tighten. I sat up immediately, looking at the ceiling. No cracks, no marks, nothing out of place. If I hadn't heard it myself, I would have thought I imagined it. But she was already awake, sitting on the edge of the bed again, same as before. Same posture, same stillness. "You heard it," I said, not a question. She nodded slowly. "It was right above us." I swallowed, forcing myself GDG. "Maybe someone in the room above." "There is no room above," she said, flat, certain. That didn't make sense. I stood up too quickly, crossed to the door, and opened it. The hallway looked the same as before, clean, quiet, normal. I stepped out and looked up at the room number above ours. Top floor. Nothing above but the roof. I felt something cold settle deep in my chest as that realization locked into place. When I stepped back inside, she hadn't moved. "We can't keep running," she said. Her voice wasn't panicked anymore. That was new. It was something else, something heavier, resigned. I shook my head immediately. "We don't have a choice." "No," she said, finally looking up at me. "We do. We just don't like it." I didn't respond, because I already knew what she was going to say next. I could see it forming before the words even came out. "It wants us somewhere," she continued. "It's been guiding us, from the cabin, to the road, to that motel, even here." "Guiding us where?" I asked, sharper than I meant to. She hesitated, just for a second. "Back." The word hung there between us, heavier than anything else she could have said. "No," I said immediately. "No, that's not happening." But even as I said it, something inside me shifted, because it made a kind of sense I didn't want to accept. The way it never rushed. The way it kept pace instead of attacking. The way it stopped at the road. The way it showed itself just enough each time. It wasn't chasing us. It was moving us. "If we go back," I said slowly, "we're walking into it." "If we don't," she replied, "it keeps coming closer anyway." Silence again. But this time it felt like a decision was forming inside it. Not spoken, not agreed on. Just inevitable. We left the hotel less than an hour later. Not in a rush, not like before. That frantic energy was gone, replaced by something colder, more focused, like we were moving toward something instead of away from it. The drive back felt shorter. That's the only way I can describe it. Roads we'd spent hours on before seemed to pass in minutes. Landmarks appeared sooner than they should have. Even the light changed again, flattening out as we got closer to the forest. By the time we reached the dirt road leading back to the cabin, neither of us had spoken in over an hour. I slowed the car this time. Not because I wanted to, because it felt required, like speed didn't belong here anymore. The trees closed in around us again, thicker than I remembered. The air felt heavier, harder to breathe. And the silence, it was exactly the same as before, waiting. We reached the clearing. The cabin came into view, exactly as we left it. Door closed, windows dark, nothing moving, nothing out of place. It looked abandoned, empty, safe if you didn't know better. I turned off the engine. The sound died instantly, leaving that same oppressive quiet in its place. Neither of us moved right away. Then she opened the door and stepped out. I followed. The ground crunched under our feet as we crossed the yard. And that's when I saw them. The tracks. Not scattered this time, not approaching from the trees. They were everywhere, layered over each other, circling the cabin in tight, overlapping patterns. Dozens of them, maybe more. Like it had been walking around the structure over and over again. Waiting. The door stood in front of us, unmarked, except for those same thin scratches from before. I felt my hand tighten around the handle before I even realized I'd reached for it. "Once we go in," I started. She nodded. "I know." I pushed the door open. The inside looked exactly the same. No signs of disturbance, no movement. Just the still, quiet space we'd left behind. But it felt different now. Not empty, not safe. Occupied. We stepped inside together. The air was colder, thicker, familiar in a way that made my stomach turn. I closed the door behind us without thinking, and the second it clicked shut, something shifted. Not outside, not in the walls, inside the room. A presence, immediate, overwhelming, like it had been waiting for that exact moment. I turned slowly, my chest tightening as I scanned the space. And then I saw it. Not in the corner, not hidden in shadow. Standing in the center of the room, like it had always been there. Like this was where it belonged. Tall, lean, wrong in ways my mind still struggles to process. Its shape didn't settle properly, like it was always slightly shifting, never fully still. The head tilted just enough to suggest recognition. Not curiosity, not hunger. Recognition. Like it knew us. Like it had always known us. And in that moment, every question we'd been asking, every attempt to understand what it wanted, collapsed into something much simpler. It didn't want the cabin. It didn't want the land. It didn't want to chase us or hunt us. It wanted us to come back. Because this was where it had decided we belonged. And the worst part wasn't seeing it. It wasn't the fear, or the realization, or even the certainty that we weren't leaving this place again. The worst part was the way she took a step toward it. Not forced, not pulled, willingly. No. The word came out sharper than anything I'd said since this started. It broke something in the room. Not physically, not yet. But the moment shifted. Just enough. She didn't stop. That was the first thing that really tore through me. Not the creature. Not the cabin. Her. The way she kept moving forward, slow, deliberate, like she wasn't afraid anymore. Like the fear had been replaced with something else, something calmer. "Stop," I said again, softer this time. Nothing. She took another step. The thing in the center of the room didn't move to meet her. It didn't need to. It just stood there, that tall, wrong silhouette bending slightly at the edges, like it couldn't fully hold its shape in this space. Its head tilted again, just a fraction, tracking her movement. Tracking her, not me. That hit harder than anything else. "I'm right here," I said, louder now, stepping forward, reaching for her arm. The second my hand touched her, she flinched. Not violently, just enough to break something. Like I'd interrupted a thought she was in the middle of finishing. She turned her head slightly toward me, and for a second, just a second, I saw her again. Confusion, fear. Then it slipped. Her expression softened. Not relief, not happiness. Just acceptance. "It's okay," she said quietly. Those two words didn't belong to her, not the way she said them. too even, too certain. "It's not okay," I snapped. "Look at it." "I am," she replied. That answer hollowed something out inside me. I followed her gaze back to the thing in the center of the room, and for the first time since we'd walked in, I forced myself to really look at it. Not just the outline, not just the wrongness of its shape, the details. And that was a mistake, because once you see it clearly, even for a moment, it doesn't leave you the same. Its body wasn't stable, not like anything real. The proportions shifted in ways that didn't track. Limbs too long, then not. The torso narrowing and widening in subtle pulses. Like it existed halfway between forms and couldn't decide which one to settle into. But the head, that part stayed consistent. Elongated, angled wrong. The suggestion of a snout, but not fully animal. The surface wasn't fur, not entirely. It looked like it couldn't decide that either. Patches of texture that shifted depending on how you focused on them. And the eyes. They weren't just reflecting light now. They were holding it, containing it in a way that made it feel like they were deeper than they should be. Like if you stared too long, you'd fall into them. I tore my gaze away, my stomach twisting hard. "It's not real," I said, more to myself than to her. "It's not. This isn't." "It is," she said, still calm, still steady. And then she took another step closer. I grabbed her arm harder this time, pulling her back. She resisted, not violently, but enough. Enough that I felt it. "Don't," she said, and this time there was something else in her voice. Not fear, not exactly. Something like warning. "To me?" I asked, my voice breaking despite everything. Her eyes flicked to mine again, and for a second, just a second, I saw that conflict, that hesitation. "It's already decided," she whispered. "What is?" She didn't answer, because something else did. The air shifted. That's the only way I can describe it, like pressure dropping in a sealed room. My ears popped slightly, and the temperature dipped just enough to raise goosebumps along my arms. The thing moved. Not a step, not a lunge. It unfolded. That's the closest word I have. Its shape stretched, lengthened, resolving just enough to become more solid in the space between us and it. Not closer, but bigger, more present. And suddenly, I understood something I wish I didn't. It wasn't bound to the cabin. The cabin was just where it was strongest. "Back up," I said, pulling her with me. This time she came, not willingly, but she moved. The creature's head tilted again, sharper this time. Then it took a step. One. The sound of it hitting the floor didn't match its size. It was too soft, too controlled, like it was choosing how much of itself to reveal with each movement. I felt something inside me snap into place then. Not fear, not panic. Clarity. It had been guiding us. It had let us leave. It had followed. Not to trap us, to separate us. "Don't look at it," I said quickly, turning her face toward me, forcing her eyes away from it. "Listen to me. Whatever it's doing, it's getting in your head. You have to fight it." She blinked, her expression flickering again. That same brief return. She started, then stopped. Behind us, another step, closer. "I don't think it's forcing anything," she said slowly. "I think it's showing me something." My chest tightened. "Showing you what?" She hesitated, and that hesitation told me everything I didn't want to hear. "Where I belong." "No," I said immediately. Too fast, too loud. Another step, closer. I didn't turn around. I refused, because I knew if I looked again, it would feel more real, more present, and I couldn't afford that. You belong with me, I said, gripping her shoulders now. We leave, right now, together. For a second, she just stared at me. Then her eyes shifted, past me, and I knew, before I even heard it, the breath right behind me. Not hot, not cold, just there. Close enough that I felt the air move against the back of my neck. I didn't turn around. I couldn't, because every instinct I had left screamed the same thing. If I looked at it that close, I wouldn't be able to look away again. Her expression changed completely then. Not calm anymore, not accepting, terrified, but not for herself, for me. "Don't move," she whispered. And for the first time since this started, I listened. I don't know how long I stood there like that. Seconds, minutes. It stretched into something shapeless, something that didn't move the way time is supposed to. All I could feel was that presence behind me, close enough that it blurred the edge of my thoughts. It wasn't touching me. That was the worst part, because it could have. I could feel the space where contact should have been, the outline of it in the air, like my body already understood its shape, without needing to see it. My skin reacted anyway, tight, cold, aware. "Don't react," she whispered again, barely breathing the words. "I think it's waiting." Waiting for what? The question formed, but I didn't say it. Something told me not to. Something told me that speaking, really speaking, not just whispering, might shift whatever balance we were in. Another breath behind me, closer. Not air, not exactly. More like pressure moving. My mind started to fracture around it. Thoughts repeating, looping, breaking apart before they could fully form. And under all of that, something else. Something quieter. A pull. Not physical, not like hands or force. Something deeper. Like a suggestion pressing into the back of my mind. Turn around. It wasn't a voice. It didn't sound like anything. It just existed. Turn around. I clenched my jaw, my hands tightening into fists at my sides. "No," I said under my breath. The pull didn't stop. If anything, it grew clearer, more defined, not stronger, just easier to understand. Turn around. I said no, louder this time. She flinched at the sound of my voice, her eyes widening. "Don't!" Too late. Something changed. The pressure behind me shifted instantly. Not gone, just different, sharper. I felt it move, not away, around. A slow, deliberate motion that traced just out of sight, circling, repositioning. I could feel where it was without seeing it. My body tracked it instinctively, every nerve pulling tight as it passed from behind me to somewhere off to my right. And then it stopped again, waiting. I swallowed hard, forcing my breathing to stay steady. "It doesn't like that," she said quietly. "Good," I replied, though my voice didn't sound as steady as I wanted it to. She shook her head slowly. "No, you don't understand. It's not anger." "Then what is it?" She hesitated. "Adjustment." That word landed wrong, deep. Before I could respond, something brushed the air near my shoulder. Not touching, not quite, but close enough that I felt the shape of it move past me. My body reacted before I could stop it. I turned. Just a fraction, just enough. And that was all it needed. I saw it. Not fully, not clearly, but closer than before. Too close. The details didn't resolve the way they should have. My eyes tried to focus, and the shape resisted it, like it refused to be understood in a single frame. Pieces of it came into clarity one at a time. Angles, textures, movement, but never all at once. But the eyes, those stayed, right there, locked onto mine. And in that moment, the pull changed. It wasn't telling me to turn anymore. It didn't have to, because now I was already looking. Something slipped inside my head, quiet, almost gentle, like a thought being replaced without resistance. I staggered back a step, breaking the line of sight. My breath came faster now, uneven, like I just surfaced from deep water. "No," I muttered, shaking my head hard. "No, no, no." Her hands were on my shoulders instantly. "Look at me." I did. I forced myself to, and it helped, a little, just enough to steady something that had started to come loose. "You see it now," she said softly, not accusing, not afraid, just certain. I nodded before I could stop myself. That was a mistake, because something in me agreed with her, not consciously, not fully, but enough. Behind her, it shifted again, closer. I could feel it now even without looking, not just its presence, its attention, focused, intent. And then I understood the last piece. It didn't want us both the same way. It had chosen differently. Her breathing steadied. Mine didn't. "You need to leave," she said. The words didn't register at first. "What?" "You need to go," she repeated, firmer now. "No." Immediate, automatic. "Yes." Her grip tightened. "It's not trying to stop you. It never did. It only kept you close enough to bring you back here." "That doesn't make any sense." "It does," she said, and there was something like urgency in her voice now. Not fear, urgency. "It needed me here. And you," she trailed off. "And me what?" Her eyes softened, just a little. "It needed you to bring me." The room tilted, not physically, but inside my head, something dropped out from under that idea. "No," I said again, weaker this time. Behind her, I felt it step closer, not toward me, toward her. "You feel it too, don't you?" she asked quietly. I didn't answer, because I did. The difference, the way its presence shifted depending on who it focused on. With me, it pressed, testing, suggested. With her, it settled, like it had already found what it was looking for. "You can still leave," she said, "right now." "And you?" She didn't answer right away. That was enough. "No," I said, stepping forward, reaching for her again. "We're not doing that. We're not splitting up. Not like this." Her expression broke for a second, finally, real emotion cutting through whatever hold it had on her. "I don't think I have a choice anymore," she whispered. Behind her, something shifted again, closer, almost touching. And this time, she didn't move away. I did, not on purpose. My body just stepped back. Instinct, survival. The space between us widened by inches, but it felt like something much larger. Her eyes locked onto mine, and for a moment, just one, I saw everything we were about to lose. "Go," she said. I didn't move, couldn't, because leaving meant accepting it. Accepting that this wasn't something I could fight, that I couldn't fix it, that I couldn't take her with me. Behind her, it finally made contact. Not violent, not sudden. Just a hand, resting lightly against her shoulder. And the second it did, she exhaled, like she'd been holding her breath for days. Relief. Actual relief. That was the moment something inside me broke for good. Because whatever this thing was, she wasn't afraid of it anymore. And that meant I was the only one left who still understood what it really was. I didn't leave right away. That's the part that still eats at me, even now. Not the fear, not what I saw, but the fact that I hesitated when she told me to go, when she gave me the only chance I was ever going to get. I stood there, watching that thing's hand rest on her shoulder like it belonged there, like it had always belonged there, and I tried to find something, anything, that still felt like control. "Come with me," I said, but it came out wrong. Not a command, not even a plea, just something weak, already falling apart before it reached her. She smiled, not fully, just enough to hurt. "You don't understand," she said. "I do now." That word, now, cut deeper than anything else, because it meant something had changed inside her, something I couldn't reach anymore. Behind her the thing shifted slightly, not moving away, not tightening its hold, just settling more comfortably into the space, like this was the outcome it had been guiding us toward from the beginning. I took a step forward again, fighting that instinct telling me to back away, to run, to survive. "This isn't you," I said. "Whatever it's showing you, it's not real." Her eyes met mine, and for a second, just a second, I saw that flicker again. Doubt, pain, but it didn't last. "It's more real than anything we left behind," she whispered. And that was it. That was the line I couldn't cross. Not physically, mentally, because some part of me understood what she meant, even if I refused to accept it. The silence in that cabin wasn't empty. It was full. Full of something older, something patient, something that didn't need to chase or hunt because it knew how to wait. I felt it then, not just around us, but through me. That same pull, softer now, less insistent, not trying to turn me anymore, just opening a door, offering something. Stay, the thought didn't come from me, but it didn't feel foreign either. That's what scared me the most. I stepped back again, shaking my head hard, trying to break whatever was slipping into place inside me. "No," I said louder now. "No, I'm not. This isn't—" My voice cracked. I couldn't finish it, because the truth was already there, forming whether I wanted it to or not. She took another step back too, but not toward me, toward it, closing that last inch of space until she was fully within its reach. And when it moved this time, it wasn't slow. It wasn't testing. Its other hand rose and settled lightly against her other shoulder, not gripping, not restraining, just holding. And she leaned into it. That was the moment everything ended. Not when it took her, not when I left, right there, when she chose it. I felt something tear loose in my chest, something raw and immediate, and for one reckless second, I almost ran forward, almost tried to pull her away by force, consequences be damned. But then I looked at her face, and she wasn't afraid, not even a little. There was no panic, no struggle, just that same quiet acceptance, relief, like she'd finally found something she didn't have to fight anymore. And I realized something I wish I hadn't. If I dragged her out of there, I wouldn't be saving her. I'd be taking her away from whatever she believed this was. That thought stopped me cold. And in that hesitation, the thing moved again. Not toward me, never toward me, always her. Its shape shifted, unfolding further, wrapping around her without touching in ways I couldn't fully process. The space around them distorted slightly, like the air itself couldn't hold both of them the same way anymore. "Go," she said one last time, her voice softer now, already distant. "Please." I didn't argue again. I couldn't, because something inside me finally understood that staying wouldn't change anything. It would just mean there were two of us instead of one. And that's when I turned, not all at once, slowly. Like if I moved too fast, something would snap, and I'd lose whatever thin thread of control I had left. I made it to the door without looking back. That's something I held on to for a long time, like it mattered, like it meant I'd resisted somehow. But the truth is, I didn't look back because I was afraid of what I'd see, or worse, what I wouldn't. I stepped outside, the cold air hitting me hard enough to feel real, to anchor me for half a second. And then I heard it. Not a scream, not a struggle, just a sound, soft, final, like something closing. I didn't stop. I didn't turn. I just walked. Faster, then faster, until I was running without realizing when it started. The trees blurred again, the ground uneven under my feet, branches catching at my clothes, as I pushed through them without direction, without thought. I didn't go back to the car right away. I couldn't. Something in me needed distance first, real distance. The kind you put between yourself and something you know you'll never be able to face again. By the time I found the road, my lungs were burning, my legs shaking, my hands numb from the cold, and everything else layered on top of it. The car was still there. Of course it was. Untouched, waiting, just like everything else had been. I got in, started it, and drove. I don't remember the first hour, or the second. Just flashes, road, trees thinning, light changing. At some point, I hit the main road again, and I kept going. I didn't check the mirrors, not once. I didn't want to know if something was following me, or if nothing was. Days passed after that, or maybe just one. Time didn't feel right anymore. I ended up back in the city eventually. Same noise, same people, same life we'd tried to leave behind. But it didn't fit anymore. None of it did. Everything felt distant, flattened, like I was moving through something that wasn't fully real. I tried to tell someone, once, just once. The words fell apart halfway through. I heard how it sounded, how impossible it was. I stopped before I could finish. After that, I didn't try again. Because some things don't survive being spoken out loud. They collapse into something smaller, something easier to dismiss. And this wasn't small. It stayed with me. Not physically, not the way it had at the cabin, but in quieter ways, subtle, persistent. I'd wake up some nights with that same pressure in the room, not on me, around me, like something was just there, not moving, not acting, just existing in the same space, waiting, watching. And sometimes, in reflections, windows, mirrors, dark screens, I'd catch something that didn't align right. A shape that lagged half a second behind my movement. Too tall, too still. Gone the second I focused on it directly. I stopped checking after a while. It was easier that way. But the worst part, the part I can't get past, isn't that it followed me. It's that it didn't need to. Because whatever it did to her, whatever she saw in it, some part of that is still here, in me. I feel it sometimes, not as a voice, not as a thought, just a quiet certainty that slips in when I'm not paying attention. The same feeling she had at the end, that sense of belonging. It doesn't last, not fully, but it's there long enough to scare me, long enough to make me understand why she stepped forward instead of back. And that's why I'm telling you this, not because I think you'll believe me, but because if you ever find something outside your door that wasn't there before, something that comes back every morning, a little closer each time, you need to leave. Immediately. No hesitation, no curiosity, because it doesn't matter how far you run after that. It doesn't matter how fast or how smart you think you are. If it decides you're part of it, part of wherever it comes from, it won't chase you. It won't need to. It'll just wait, patient, certain, until the moment you stop running, or worse, the moment you understand.